Morning, everybody. Very nice to see everybody on this new paths morning. This is a white tea. This is the first session in a series of 3 new paths and then 2 red teas. Ruby Gates and Healing, I believe, are the 2 following red teas. So before we really start down the road of new paths, let's talk about some of the news within the shop. The first thing is we put in our final order, and that order has arrived in California. We believe we'll have that in the shop sometime Monday or Tuesday. This is the last one for the year as far as we know, and this includes the Cliff Teas. So we're very excited about that. We have some wonderful selections coming. You all will be, as you are every year, surprised and amazed. So that's first thing. Second thing is I want to talk a little bit about the market in China, because the market in China plays a large effect on the market here. So as China has become more and more closed off, what's happened is that the really good teas don't leave. And it's really a price issue more than a control issue. Price and knowledge issue, because so many people don't really know to ask for the great teas. This year it's been really hard because of the COVID situation within China. A lot of things have occurred just to make availability of some of these really great teas hard to come by. So what's happened in the American market as a result? You see a lot of Taiwanese oolongs coming on the market, and you see a lot of blends. You also see a lot of teas with added substances to them in order to enhance flavor, because it's hard to get the original source material from China and the different flavors. And in this American market, consumers continue to be damaged by several things. First off, logistics is very expensive and problematic. Trying to get things from faraway places is hard, and it's become very expensive. Going through the regulatory processes, very expensive. In addition to that, tariffs is harmful to consumers, and that's been a bad look these last few years. So we have all of these things which are affecting the American market. How about the Chinese market? What's that looking like these days? Well, you really can divide the Chinese market into 4 different levels. One is, just like here, purchasers are looking for the lowest possible price. They don't care about the quality. They really aren't caring that much about the taste. They're just looking as a price. And so you have that level of the Chinese market. They don't know very much about tea, but they know that maybe they should be drinking it. And that's about all they know. And they look simply for price as an indicator, and not even an indicator. Price is least common or lowest amount to pay to get the whatever they're going to get, which is essentially the equivalent of tea bag tea. Then you have the next level up, and that's those people in China who play with gaiwars or the covered cups. They play at tea. They know that there's something about tea that's special, but they don't really have much education about tea. They like playing with tea. They make it part of their social tradition. And in terms of really understanding tea, they don't have a very good understanding of tea. Then there's the next level up, where you've got a grade of people in China who have learned a significant part of tea. And because they feel that tea and tea knowledge is part of their tea culture, they've taken the time to really have a better understanding of tea. They are usually drinking at about the midpoint level, and that really is the largest part of the market in China. So at the very top, you have a segment of the market that's considerably larger than the equivalent segment here in the States. And that is the market who knows, okay, if I really want to get good knowledge about tea, if I really want to get the best and most unusual teas, I'm going to have relationships with tea industry people, with tea owners, tea shop owners, and with scientists. And those are the individuals who are getting the types of education and the types of teas that all of you have an opportunity to get here at Sophie's. So those are really the levels of markets in China. At that top level in China, you have a dividing line in that group. Because while, again, the size of that market continues to grow faster than that premium market here, and therefore puts pressure on the prices here because they're consuming more of this great stuff. There are two reasons. You have the pure connoisseurs, those who are looking for the taste, those who are looking for the nutritional value, and then there's a division in that group of those who are making sure that they don't lose their face. But wait a minute, aren't we talking about tea losing face? How, at that level, how do you lose face? Well, you lose face at that level if you are nouveau riche or you've gotten recently into the tea drinking habit and you're trying to get favors and you're trying to impress people. So you send gifts and you want to make sure that the gift you send is unusual and unique. But that's not necessarily what you're drinking because you don't want or you're unable to sustain the price for that or withstand the price for that. So that's how that top division is divided in China. And as I said, that continues to grow the fastest because not being able to travel around the world anymore, the local population has turned internal to look at the great things that China produces. And tea, of course, is right at the top of that list. All right, so that's a little summary of the market. Now this morning, because I'm the understudy, and we know understudy is always deficient in this thing or that thing, I wasn't as prepared in sending you documents as I should have been. So this morning you received, if you haven't looked in your email, 2 documents from me. One of them I'll talk about shortly, and it's a Chinese character, and we'll need to understand that character shortly. But the other one is a map, and I'd like you to look at that map of Fujian province. And what I'm going to do is walk you through relevant, important spots on that map. So if you get that map, Fujian is in yellow. So if you look at northern Fujian and you look on the left, you see something called Wuishan, Wuyisan. And it's on, if you go directly north and a little bit to northwest, there it is right on the border of the adjoining province. So that's where the cliff teas come from. So you notice that there's a red line to the right of the name, Wuishan, right over the end. If you follow that line south, the red line, you'll see a place called Jianyang, Jianyang. That's one of the key places where white tea comes from. So that's why I wanted you to identify that. Are we done? Oh no, this is Fujian province. where they grow many different types of tea. Stay at Jinyang, go directly to the right, and then slight hint up north, and you see a place called Zhenghe, Zhengag. So this is a place, another place, and a very famous place where white tea comes from, and a famous white tea varietal. Still not done with white tea. Go all the way directly to the right to the coast, and you see a place called Fujian, Fuding, and it's right there on the coast. That's the third most famous place in China. Now, it sounded like I just ranked the places. Jinyang first, Zhenghe second, and Fuding third. Unintentional. That's not what I meant. To the tea drinking world in China, Fuding is the name everybody knows. That is the famous place in China. Zhenghe, some people know. Jinyang, very few people know. Now, since we have this map up already, I want to go to one more place because I want you to go south. No, don't do that yet. Go back to Jinyang. Jinyang, Jianyang, is that on that red line from Wuishan, and go south towards the bottom, and you see a place called Anxi, Anxi. So you have to go, let's see, that's 1 inch, 2 inches, about 3 or 4 inches down. Anxi, Anxi. And that's where the southern Fujian teas, southern oolongs come from. So since we had the map out, I wanted to go through that and show you those places and get you placed. So today, where should we be placed? We should be placed in Zhenghe. So that's, you go down to Jinyang, you go to the right, Zhenghe, that's where we are today. And that's where New Paths, that area comes from. Now, also this morning, I sent you a Chinese character. And the Chinese character is Min, M-I-N. And you see the Chinese character in the email that I sent you. So why is this important? Tea that comes from Fujian is often called Ming Cha. Now you remember, down in Yunnan in southwest China, we have Dian Hong, right? And Dian is another name for Yunnan. Ming is another name for Fujian. So that sounds all good and that's simple, but I sent you a Chinese character. That's not simple and that's not all and good because you don't usually deal with Chinese characters. There must be something about this character. So look at the character carefully. So you see that it's framed almost in a box. And at the top of that box, there's a little dot. And in Chinese, if you didn't have that mess within the box, and it was just blank, that would mean mun or door or gate, has all of those meanings. But there's more. There's a mess in the box. And that mess in the box, now that's very disrespectful to Chinese characters. So let me rephrase that. There is a beautiful Chinese character in the box. And that character means insect. Uh-oh. Insect, a gateway to insects. So let me tell you a story from the first time that I visited Anxi. Remember, we saw where Anxi was on the map. That's southern Fujian. And I was in this lovely couple's shop. They had a small apartment upstairs, little baby. Baby was probably 3 months old. And they were selling tea in the shop. And this was a farmer and this was a retail outlet. And we were visiting. And at some point, they were serving us tea and so forth. You know, everybody was polite, having a great conversation, learning things. My favorite way to enjoy an evening. And then I felt, you know, probably should use the restroom before I go anywhere else. And they indicate, oh, the restroom's upstairs. And my eyes looked at the top of those stairs. And there were probably 10 to 12 stairs. And what did I see on the wall? I saw a spider of very massive proportion. Remember, I'm sitting down in the shop and I glance up there and I see this thing and I realize in order to get to the restroom, and this is a narrow stairway, I'm going to have to pass by that thing. And so suddenly, when I had this urge to go to the bathroom, suddenly I'm feeling, you know what? I don't have to go to the bathroom at all. I'm feeling really good. So why do I bring this story up? And how is it related to a gateway to insects? This character wasn't chosen by accident to describe this region. This region is, for the most part, very humid, lots of very large and interesting insects. The mosquitoes in this region are very noisy, which means large. They have snakes by the cartload. They have everything that if you are a naturalist, it sounds like a very fun place to visit. However, if you don't like cohabiting with these types of insects, perhaps this is not the most fun place to visit. Turns out that from a Chinese historical perspective, the use of this character was very much on purpose. And so it described a place that was kind of outside the realm where people ought to live. And therefore, when you exiled people to places, this was a place that people got exiled to. Now, it turns out, and people didn't really understand this in the ancient times, that this was perfect climate for tea plants and tea trees. And so tea all across this province, different varietals. It's the richest, most diverse. And you know, anytime you make a superlative, somebody's going to argue. So let me clarify that superlative. Along with Yunnan, these are two of the most rich areas in terms of varietals of tea, in terms of microclimates. So you have everything in this province. And that's why you see such variety coming out of Fujian. Fujian is famous for its cliff teas. It's famous for its lighter oolongs and anshi. It's famous for its red teas, especially the small varietals. The most famous one I've talked about before, the so-called Golden Steed. It's famous, very famous for its white teas, and it's famous for its green teas. So it's got everything except pu'er, essentially, are the fully fermented teas. And that's the environment we're talking about. So, and again, really controlled by all of these microclimates. So the culture that developed in this province was all about tea. Tea was kind of a passport. It was like your encryption code to be able to enter society. Because everywhere you went as a guest, you stop in, oh, let's have some tea. Before you talk about anything, you don't talk about relatives or anything. Wait, you sit down, you have some tea. And depending where you are within Fujian is what type of tea you get. If you're in Zhenghe, I'm finally getting around to new paths. You were probably wondering, when are you going to get to new paths? Because we're thirsty. I understand you're thirsty and we're on our way there. When you get to Zhenghe, you're in new path territory. You're in white tea territory, and you're in big, big insect and arachnid territory. All of these things at the same time. We've been there many times. We love the tea. The people are great there. By the way, you saw I sent a picture of an old lady. Why did I send that picture? Was it just some random old lady? Oh no. This lady in that picture, 105 years old. And she's the mother of the farmer that we get a lot of our white tea from. And you notice, no cane, no walker. When we go there, every year that we were going, she's passed away, by the way, within the last couple of years. Every time we go there she is walking around the place, clear, hearing pretty good. You can speak to her. I can't understand her that well because she speaks heavy dialect, but she's clear and she understands me. And so when you ask her, well, how come you're so relatively healthy? Just like when we asked the 100-year-old worker in the fields, when he proudly told us, yeah, I'm 100 years old. We said, how? And he said, every day, white tea. Now, of course, all of you are scientists and we think critically, so we know that anecdotal stories like that, like this, are just anecdotal. However, what a nice anecdote. All right, let's get to white paths because the tea master has signaled to me 8 times that we should be starting to demonstrate and then drink. Did I say white paths? I meant new paths. We should be starting to drink new paths. So it is my very great pleasure to bring in the very thirsty tea master, shall we?
Yes.
Dangerously thirsty.
Yes.
Dangerously thirsty, yes.
哎，大家好，早上好 ，Good morning. Yeah. So we do 白茶，we do white tea 白茶。Okay, so we still have a new tea brand, right, John?
Yes.
So yeah.
Couple new tea friends in today's group. We welcome you both.
Okay, I do.
So you see the setup, tea tray, tea toys, and then 3 cups. You can use 2 cups, that's fine. 3 cups will make the dissipation of steam process that you're about to see go faster, but 2 cups works just as well. So the tea master has drawn 200-degree water and is heating all 3 cups. And why do you heat? And why do you use 200-degree water? And what if you want to use 175 instead of 200-degree when you heat the cup? All of those things are fine to do. You're trying to make sure that there's no unexpected soap spots left on the glass or anything which can affect flavor or aroma. Tea master has drawn 175-degree water and is dissipating the heat. Now, new pass is such that it can take a little bit more heat, but we still dissipate the heat because you'll find when you dissipate the heat, particularly with the whites, reds, and greens, you make the flavor brighter. Higher temperature makes the flavor flatter. All right, so taking bag number 1, Tea Master is doing this. You're not going to do this yet. We're demonstrating first. Pours bag number 1 in. And then puts the dissipated, shakes the leaves. Smells to make sure we have the right tea in there. And adds the water. Okay, then sets the timer for 2 minutes. All right, so why is it none of you have heard before of this tea new paths? Is this something that somehow we're the only ones who have it, or maybe through naming conventions, this is why this is this way? As it turns out, we're very nearly the only ones who have it, not only here, but in China as well, because this is really known well among the tea professionals in China, but it's not known widely outside of that class. And why is that? Because this is a newer way of actually processing white tea. And it's not new in terms of steps. You're still drying, sun drying the tea when it's possible, but you're doing it for a different length of time. And the end result, and this is why it's so important to also know scientists, the end result is you get more flavonoids with this. You also get a distinctly more pronounced flavor. So let's talk and break down white tea, because you see many websites, and of course we know the internet tells the truth all the time and gives you perfect renditions of the truth. So let's review some of what they say. They say that there are 4 categories of white tea. And what they really mean is that there are 4 modalities of processing white tea. So let's first check our boxes. Is this true? Oh, this is true. We can check this box. Okay. Timer is finished. That was 2 minutes. Notice not in a huge hurry. We're careful. We're going to separate the tea leaves from the tea liquor.
These with some stems look like they naturally fell off the plant and dried in the sun.
Love this description. The leaves with the stems look like they just fell off the plant and dried in the sun, and then somebody just came along and swept them up and sold them as new paths. Not what happened. But let's go through the quality arena before I actually comment on that comment, because I have lots to say about that. So the quality arena is you first smell, and you're not doing this, you're watching me, and then this is what you're going to do. So you get a sense of this aroma early. And remembering that smell and taste have a relationship, this is why you do that. You look at the color of this thing. Now, this is white tea. Wait a minute. color is a little yellowish. Well, that's a little different. That's fresh. Let's take 175-degree sip. Remembering that 175-degree sip is more than a 200-degree inhalation. So you're going to cover your tongue and you're going to look for the following things. Where is your tongue having a reaction and what sort of reaction? Then as you sweep it around your mouth, you're going to swallow it and feel and think about what aftertaste you're getting. And then lastly, there's going to be some energetics. For some of you, you won't feel much. Some of you will feel something distinct. The energetics are related to Chinese medicinal view of how tea affects you. And particularly for white and greens, they talk about them as being relatively cooling. So again, when you do yours should look like this. And let me take that 175 inhalation, not inhalation, sip. Well, I've certainly left the land of Silver Needle. This is very different from that. So I'm getting a feel for the mouthfeel. I'm getting a sense of some aftertaste, and I'm waiting for energetics. So this is what you're going to do now, and the tea master will brew with you. Whoops.
Participants that notes your comment about the old lady living to 105 because of her drinking tea every day reminds me of what historians have pointed out about early Chinese laborers in California and how they were able to maintain good health by boiling their water to make tea, in contrast to the white workers who drank water straight from the rivers, which were not always pure, but were contaminated by bacteria and giardia.
I know what
Or maybe as a,
it's a type of bacteria
type of
that
bacteria. Yeah.
they're referring to, or water organism that poisons or damages the person, a human. Great comment. And this is part of a more generalized discussion of why the British all of a sudden became healthier when they started drinking tea. And it's for the same types of reasons, because just as you pointed out with the Chinese here in California, the British learned, oh yeah, you gotta boil tea beforehand. So they were boiling the water, boiling the water before they actually put the tea in. Good point. And this was replacing either a dirty water habit in the morning or an alcohol habit in the morning. So some kids would go to school soused pre-tea, but once you had tea, that was going away. And all the intestinal and other issues with bad water started to go away. So same sort of concept in terms of health of the Chinese workers versus the Western workers, because the Chinese workers were drinking tea. They knew to do that. And it wasn't specifically, yeah, this is health related. They enjoyed the taste as well. So all of those things. All right, so let me go back to this comment about what this looks like. Leaves that just fell off, swept up, and then produced or packaged as tea. These are actually picked, and the pick is down to the third or fourth leaf. They do include the stem, and the inclusion of the stem is to add the flavor, and this is as opposed to the silver needle, which is a bud and just the bare showing of a leaf. So we were getting into this just before we started tasting them a second ago. And that is, there are 4 modalities for processing white tea. One is silver needle, and that's basically a bud. The other is white peony. Now, white tea started to be a thing in China in the late 1700s, and then it really picked up in Fujian province in the 1800s, but really nowhere else within China. And it was done as a way to reduce the amount of work of processing tea, because they eliminated the 2 steps. They eliminated the roasting or the cooking of the tea, and they eliminated the rolling of the tea. And so they substituted sun drying. Timer is done. You will carefully separate the tea leaves from the tea liquor. You see that beautiful color? And this is what yours should look like. And so the first thing you'll do is smell the leaves. You'll look at the leaves. And one of the things you'll notice about these leaves is how green they are. And I'm going to talk to you about that in terms of the modalities in a minute, because there's a lot really to talk about in terms of new paths, especially as a newer version of one of the modalities. So while you're thinking about what you're tasting, and while you're thinking about the quality characteristics of this, let me go through the other 3 modalities. White peony, as far as anybody can tell, was invented in 1911. And that's a bud, and there's 3 grades of it. So you have a bud and 1 leaf, a bud and 2 leaves, and a bud and 3 leaves. Those are the grades that you have of white peony. And obviously the bud and 1 leaf is the highest of the grades. Then you have something that you see in literature as either tribute white tea or longevity white tea. And those have very few buds, if any, and lots of broken up leaves. And those are from picks that go down to the 3rd, 4th, or 5th leaf of the bush. And they have stems, both have stems. Now, in conventional literature, and if you look at the experts on the internet, you have lots of tea shops which talk about longevity tea, longevity eyebrow tea, as, and by the way, that here is listed as Taoist eyebrows within this shop. And the other type is listed as spring tribute. So if you look at the internet, you'll find many of the purveyors say that the longevity is a higher grade than the spring tribute. I'm sorry to have to disappoint everybody. If you look at history, prior to 1949, in the literature within China, you didn't see spring tribute listed. That doesn't mean that maybe in 1948 or 1947, you didn't have people starting to think about a separate modality, but you didn't see it listed. And if you go to the receipt books of the big state-owned companies in China pre-1949. They didn't list that, which means it essentially wasn't being done, or if it was being done, very craft and very singular farm. So really, starting in 1950, you start to see tribute tea, or what we call spring tribute. Now, many places list this as the lowest grade. Again, deceptive. It's deceptive for two reasons. First off, let's think about grade here. Does grade mean quality in Chinese? No, it does not. And so grade really refers to processing modality. Now, it is true that some modalities have more health benefits, seem to have more health benefits than other modalities, but that's not why they are listed as a grade or not. So let's back up to make this clear. Remember, I said white peony has 3 grades. Originally, the longevity eyebrow also had 3 grades. And this tribute, or spring tribute, was the highest of those 3 grades. And that's what got separated out in the 1950s, in the early 1950s. And therefore, from a grade perspective, that's at a higher grade. It's also a different varietal. And I know I'm in the weeds here. Now, I apologize for that because too much information. I understand that. But some of you like a little bit more information and you like a little bit more accuracy than you get elsewhere. And that's why we're going through this. The other thing I should tell you, and it's really important to understand this, you see some information on the purveyor of all truths, which indicates, oh, you got to know the name of the farmer to know whether the tea is any good. This would be not a good way to proceed. A better way to proceed is know the name of the scientists who are associated with farms. That is a much better way to proceed because scientists are driving lots of changes since the 50s. They're driving changes in terms of big data. Hey, how did we get in the computer field all of a sudden? We went from tea to the computer field. That's a neat sleight of hand. What I mean by that is data was started to be collected in terms of, okay, how do we produce the best color? How do we produce the best aroma? How do we produce the best taste? You know, how long should we sun dry for? This farm sun dries this length of time. And we're getting lots of information. And the scientists are collecting this information. And this accelerated in the 80s. Until now, really, it's important, again, to understand what institute is connected with these farms. That's where you get the key information that you really need to make decisions, both from a value standpoint and a potential health benefit standpoint. Yes.
There's a comment on mouthfeel, extraordinary mouthfeel, very juicy and soft, light mid-tongue drying, so different from silver needle.
Great opening comment. Light, juicy, and soft is the description of the mouthfeel. Excuse me. Different from silver needle? No question, different from silver needle. And I really, again, like the juicy and soft aspect of this comment because you're looking at the color and you're thinking to yourself, okay, great, you know, differences in quality, Okay, a bud ought to be, you know, softer. Why? No, that's not. And that's why grades are deceptive.
It's hard not to drink it too fast.
Ah, love this comment. And I've been hearing this more and more about a variety of our teas. Hard not to drink this too fast. And this is really true. It takes all my self-control. And because I'm continuing to talk, that's the only thing that's limiting me from polishing off this cup right away.
The aroma of the dry leaves had hints of floral, totally unexpected. And then, was that umami in the wet leaves? The liquor also coats the tongue with this refreshing aftertaste, a clean feel, and the energetics of calming.
Refreshing aftertaste, calming energetics, a very clean mouthfeel, hints of floral, and in the tea leaves themselves. Might it be that there's some umami in this? Wow, this covered the whole range and did it in a good job, because yes, we do get hints of umami in the tea leaves. Love the fact that you landed on clean feel, because absolutely clean, nothing murky about this. And white tea in general, and you picked it up without me even giving it away, it does typically have a calming energetic. All right, so I'm going to take another sip while you're still thinking. So we were talking about the development of these modalities. And the one thing that I was going to say, how did they segregate Spring Tribute from Taoist Eyebrows? They segregated it by varietal of tea plant. You notice when you look at these leaves, I ask you the following: are these leaves gigantic? Well, let's see. I've seen much larger white tea leaves. No, these are puny. And the answer is yes, these are puny. So what it is, they're not using the Zhenghe Dabai big varietal. They're using a small leafed varietal, and the varietals fit with the land. And can you just take a varietal and take it somewhere else? Well, you can do anything you want. However, will you get a result that will be drinkable? And the answer is not easily. Varietals and terroirs are semi-married together. Occasionally, you'll have crosses. So particularly between Anxi, ANXI, remember that place that I showed you in southern Fujian, and the Wui Mountains. Occasionally, you'll have movement there. In China, the big movement between the big leaf white plant has been to Zhejiang province, has been to Hunan province, and has been to Sichuan. Why? It's not that the terroirs are the same, because they're not. It's been because farmers have looked and said, hey, this is big leafed. Okay, so my amount of effort will produce a big leaf. I'll get greater volume. Hey, I'll become rich overnight. Is that what has happened? The answer is no. What's happened is, first off, they moved a varietal somewhere else, grew it, and yes, it's produced and they've made some money. But I ask you the following: are these farmers in Sichuan and Zhejiang, are they qualified to do white tea? And the answer is no. So they're not doing white tea. They completely taken this and used it for green tea. Yes.
This is a great reminder not to judge a tea by its leaves. If I saw this, I would assume someone took their backyard camellia, dried it, and I'm getting scammed. Such a surprise.
Love this comment. So you can't judge a tea by its leaf is essentially what this comment is. And this is really true, particularly white teas. White teas throw you a curveball because the processing is you pick, you dry. Oh, wait a minute, you dry. So you get a fancy machine and you put it in that machine and dry it? Oh no, you use the most powerful machine in the near universe, and that's the sun. You sun dry. And one of you is going to ask me in a minute, so I'm going to shortcut this question. Well, what if it's raining every day? They always have a backup if it's raining every day or very dewy fog every day. They actually do have low temp ovens, and it takes about 40 hours of low temp oven to actually dry. So then the following question you're going to ask me, and it's a great question, would the outcome be the same as using that magic machine in the sky? And the answer is no. Sun-dried always has a somewhat different result than oven-dried. Is the oven-dried drinkable? Oh yeah, it's drinkable, but it's not quite the same as sun-dried. Yes.
The dry leaves looked slightly processed as if they had simply fallen, and I could sense the breeze that brought them down. And the first scent of the broth was clean with a hint of florality. First slurp, I totally agree with Megan's juicy and soft comment.
So this is agreement with juicy and soft, hints of floral. And again, the surprise for this commentator was really in looking at these leaves, it just seemed so much like they just blew off and it just got picked up and then put in a bag, and they don't look hardly like they're processed because they're so green. And that's why I wanted you to take a close look at these leaves. They are incredibly green, and it shows that the drying technique that was used preserved the greenness. And when you preserve the greenness, that adds an element of difference to the flavor. If you took our spring tribute and drank it side by side with New Pats, immediately you'd see a difference.
There's some earthy question mark, and then this commentator noted, hey, maybe I've tasted the sun back in the throat, and I wondered what that was. Sun-dried is sun plus earth, and it lingers in the back of the mouth and the upper throat and snakes back up the nose, creates clarity, flow, appetite.
Clarity, flow, appetite. This commentator notes that this creates this type of feeling. And I like those descriptors. And let's think about the name for a minute. Now, I'll get to the rest of your comment in a minute. I haven't brushed that off. I'm connecting it with the name New Pats. We chose the name New Pats because it was a new modality for doing, a new way of handling an old modality and creating such a different result. And again, with the focus on clarity. So I love that part of your comment. Let's go back to the first part of this comment, please.
Which is, at first
back
it registered as earthiness, but I love that the commentator noted, well, maybe it's actually when you sun dry something, it draws out the sense of the sun plus earth.
Love that comment. When you sun dry at this level, this one has the sense of faint earthiness to it. And there's this feeling in the back of the throat. I particularly like that you landed on the back of the throat. And I was wondering if anybody was going to land there, because that's where I land, in the back of okay. So if you take the whole throat, the front back of the whole throat is where I first land. And then over time, it kind of works its way down the throat. And it's not an unpleasant feeling. It's a feeling of surprise more than anything, because it's like, wow, what other tea lands quite like that?
The tea liquor has a round, sweet, almost apple-like aroma where I can almost imagine a bit of cinnamon.
Round, sweet, apple-like aroma, where this commentator can almost imagine a little bit of cinnamon. So all of you are consistent. Round, sweet, smooth, soft, and completely unexpected, completely different from Silver Needle, completely different from White Peony. How can this be so different? You're asking yourselves. And the answer again is everything goes through sun drying process, but because of the part of the plant that's being sun dried, you're getting a different result. Somebody, in fact, the first commentator noted when they made the note that, these are just leaves that fell off of the plant and were swept up with stems and everything. The stems actually add some bulk to this, and it makes a nice smoothness. And going back to that sense of earthiness, instead of earthiness, I would propose woodsiness, and it comes from these stems.
Such a smooth swallow. Just a hint of astringency in the mouth, tiny bit on the tongue, and then warming to the core, comforting, pleasurably energizing.
Comforting, pleasurably energizing. Love that comment about this. How can you not be calmed and comforted by this? This tea brings no hints of dissonance at all, nor does it overstimulate you. Many of the green teas, while they're very nice and to a degree centering, they bring sometimes a little bit of stimulation. And for some people, they bring some harshness to the stomach, to the digestion. Not this. This is absolutely easy on the digestion, yes.
Are there trichomes floating in this?
Oh, yes. So the question is, why aren't there more trichomes floating in this? There are trichomes, first off. For those of you who are new, what are trichomes? Those are those white hairs. One probably shouldn't call them white hairs, but for description purposes, in some teas, you see what look like white hairs. They actually are the fine hairs on the tea leaf. And what are those things? Not things. What are those trichomes full of? They're full of polyphenols. And what purpose do they serve? Are they showing that a plant is aged and wise, or are they there so that the bugs, when they bite them, they bite and then they go pooey and go somewhere else? Because the trichomes don't taste good to the bugs. They are a natural, on the plant occurring, self-generated pesticide.
Commentator says he can almost imagine that the tea liquor could be reduced and become a syrup that is pleasantly lightly sweet.
Oh, love this comment. I really love this comment, because this I can visually see, and I can imagine the same thing. This commentator says, imagines that you could reduce this into a syrup, which would be nice and sweet, not overly sweet, just a very pleasant sweetness. Great comment, because actually, as soon as you put that thought in my head, I can see exactly the same thing. Great.
Did we cover the fourth modality of white tea processing?
I think we did. So let's go through all four of them. So Silver Needle. sometimes you see it in Chinese literature, Xinjiang, white peony. Then you have longevity eyebrow, and then you have tribute eyebrow. And again, in that great world of truth and honesty, many times it is stated that longevity eyebrow is a, in quotes, with the implication, a higher grade than the tribute eyebrow. This would be false. And it comes from the fact that people really haven't looked back in history. And when one mistake is made, this is the problem with the internet. When a mistake is made, it's frequently repeated over and over and over again because people don't back up and check all the facts. When you check all of the facts, then you realize, oh, no, this isn't what the situation is. All right. Oh my gosh, right on time. A rarity. For you newcomers, I almost always miss this phrase, right on time. Almost always late. An understudy's bad habits. We went through what I consider one of the most interesting of the white teas that we have. Again, I remind you, why is this tea not common within Chinese society tea drinkers? They simply don't know this tea. Not that much is done. The production of it is on a relatively lower scale. The tea industry and the tea research institutes are trying to popularize, but remembering that in China, white tea is less often drunk than green tea and oolong tea. It's a little bit of an uphill battle. Why, again, do you connect to owners and scientists? Because they'll tell you, higher in flavonoids. This one potentially has more health benefits than Taoist eyebrows or spring tribute. Yes.
I did this as a commentator. She did this in her, brewed the tea in her small glass gaiwar, and it's just so rich, and it's lasted 4 steepings. Her question is, can she keep it for tomorrow morning and continue with it?
So for all of those who are using a small cup gaiwar, this particular commentator said that they got 4 steepings from it. That's great. The question is, can this be put in the refrigerator or some other place and then gotten out tomorrow morning and steeped again? So let me remind you, at home, you can do anything you want. However, if the question is, would we recommend this? Absolutely not. If you think that you can get more steepings, and you probably can, you can probably get up to 8 or 9 steepings. What we would suggest instead is to get one of these things. A nice old thermos, a nice thermos, doesn't have to be old, nice new thermos would be good too. And go ahead and do the steepings now and save the tea and just keep drinking it when you want to. Now, what's the disadvantage of that? The one disadvantage is it will oxidize in a container like this and will come out stronger and a different color. So that would be one disadvantage. If you have a nice thermos that's glass, that is less likely to happen, or it'll happen more slowly. Why is it you can't get up tomorrow morning? Well, then again, at home, you can do anything you want. But why would we not recommend you get up tomorrow morning and brew this tomorrow morning? So let's take an analogy, something that all of us understand. What if you are, and actually in China I am, because when I stay in a nice hotel in China, they always have salads in the morning. I'm a morning salad person if I can get it. I can rarely get it, but in China I can get it. So you made a morning salad. You get that lettuce, avocado in there, nice tomatoes. Gotta have cucumbers. For those of you who like a little fancier salads, let's get some olives in there. And you eat that first thing in the morning, feels fresh. You're getting the energy of the vegetables and you're proud of yourself. I had vegetables for breakfast. At noon, same salad, not finished. Would you eat it? And the answer is yes, because things have changed, but not enough for you to be turned off by doing it. By dinner time, would you eat that thing? Leaves are brown, avocados have turned brown. Doesn't have the same flavor. Doesn't have the same nutritive value. Could you eat it? You're not going to die if you eat it. That's no issue. By the next morning, you most certainly will not eat it. So that's the same principle with tea leaves. Once you get them wet, chemical reactions are taking place, and they continue to take place over time. And the longer the time goes, the more those reactions occur, and the less of the value that you originally were hoping to get from the tea leaves exists. All right. Absolutely had fun with you with this tea. We were pretty sure you would be surprised by this tea. And if you haven't had this before, we were pretty sure you'd be pleased with this tea. The next 2 weeks are going to be a turn, and that turn is into red tea. And we have 2 terrific red teas coming up. I believe next week is Ruby Gates. The following week is Healing. I might have got that backwards. It might be Healing next week and then Ruby Gates the following. But at least it's those 2 teas. Your assignment, should you choose to accept it this week, is to stay healthy and happy. And I look forward to seeing everyone next Saturday. Y'all take care now. Bye-bye.